How do you see so far the commitment from the G20 member countries, especially Indonesia, for the climate change issues?
Okay, for climate change, I think it's different from country to country, even if you are talking about G20, right? Definitely, as if you are talking about climate change again, under the UNFCCC, countries somehow being differentiated, right? Those that already has the resources, the capabilities, and also the one that emit earlier, they need to take more responsibility than the developing one. And I think that's can be seen in G20 as well. So there are a number of countries that basically can be categorized as industrialized country, and they definitely are expected to be, to have more stronger commitment, and they are. And there are also some of the G20 members that is still in the developing stage, so they are expected to be less in a way, but anyway, for their development, they will need to move also towards more climate-friendly development. And I think this also has a lot to do with whatever the commitments under the UNFCCC, which is, like developed countries or industrialized countries, they need to provide support for developing countries. And this is one thing that is still lacking all the way since the very beginning all the way up to today. And this, in that sense, also, I should say, affecting, right, the commitment from developing countries, including developing countries in the G20.
So climate change and also energy transition is also the main priority issues that we'll discuss on the G20 leaders on November. So far, what do you think about it will have like impact on the solution to the climate change for the G20 presidency of Indonesia?
Yeah, I think, as I mentioned earlier, one of the issue that now being, if I can say, hype, you can say it, for the climate issues is to reach net zero emission in the second half of this century, right? And one way, this is also to link because you mentioned about energy, and one way to achieve that net zero emissions is basically through transitioning from fossil and, if I can say, dirty, high intensive carbon energy to renewable and cleaner and hopefully zero emission. And I think Indonesia, not only Indonesia through its presidency as well as the G20 leaders next November, need to work on a more, how do you call it, realistic things, right? For example, how to achieve the net zero emission through energy transition, because energy transition is important, is necessary, is something that urgently needed, but it will have a lot of costs, of course. And then one thing that need to be discussed, and I think need to be found the solution in through G20 is also how those G20 countries can collaborate to first support the transitioning of energy, which can lead to much better, effort to reduce the impact. To reduce the climate change as well as its impact. So hopefully that's something. I mean, like, the situation is not that good, but from what I learned from the process, at least, you might have heard also that the last meeting of the energy transition ministerial as well as the working group couldn't reach the agreement for the communique, right? But it's not because of the substance. So it's not because countries are not agreed on the elements of the substance or the way they would like to address it, but it's more on because of the geopolitical issues. So hopefully next November, I don't know what type of the outcome or of the output, but at least the agreement to address the issue is there. And you know, like, even though it's not a communique, then let's move with whatever we got. And as we heard also in the energy transition working group, they already have this Bali compact, right? So at least use that as one of the tools to implement the agreement among countries.
Thank you so much for the time.